3 new cents. Brandon's back was aching as he locks the doors of the gas station. A deep sigh of relief escapes his lips, followed by the slow drudge of an overworked retail clerk. He digs deep in his pocket and fishes out his key fob. A click of the unlock button triggers a chirp that resonates in the silent night, joined in by the rustling of a plastic bag in his hand. The gap from his mind-numbing place of employment to his isolated sedan across the empty parking lot is closed quickly. The hairs on the back of his neck stand on end like every night. He quickens his pace and his hand finds the door handle to his vehicle. Brandon quickly enters his vehicle, locking the doors and starting his car. His head darts around, looking out the windows in the vacant night. He shakes his head at himself as his hand grips the gear shift and engages the transmission. Christ, I hate this place, but I gotta stay clean. 3 weeks and counting, 3 weeks and counting, Brandon thinks to himself as he drives away. The drive home allows Brandon the time to relax and listen to his favorite songs. His head nods to the beat, blissfully unaware of the shifting of plastic and accompanying rustling from the bag haphazardly tossed into the passenger seat of his sedan. Only a pause in between songs alerts Brandon to the rustling. Brandon immediately shoots his gaze to the bag only moments prior to their succession. Confused and startled, Brandon's forehead glistens with sweat. His eyes are wide with fear and lack of sleep. Okay, I swear if one of those assholes put a mouse or rat into my bag, I'm gonna harvest some heads tomorrow when I open. Brandon contemplates as he reaches out for the gray plastic sack. His hands shake as the inches to the bag seem like miles, akin to a swimmer attempting to cross the English Channel. Brandon quickly grips the bag, pulls it onto his lap, and yanks it open. He finds no rodent or other trap device. All Brandon sees inside are the 3 Little Joe air fresheners. Just as quickly as these thoughts appear, Brandon's logic centers quickly override the fight or flight aspects of his psyche as he gazes inside. I really need to get more than 8 hours of sleep every 3 days, Brandon says to himself out loud. He reaches into the bag and pulls out the 3 clear packages of air fresheners. After checking that the roads are still void of any other traffic, Brandon rips open the red cherry-scented packaging. He holds the andromorphic novelty in his hands, turning it on end, admiring one of his new purchases. I can't believe that these little guys are already on clearance. You'd think that they would be nearly impossible to keep in stock, Brandon ponders openly. Brandon holds the red Little Joe upright at eye level, admiring the details poured into the design for a simple accessory. The late-night shop closer finds himself drawn into what can only be defined as a hypnotic gaze from this eyeless creation. His free will seems to drain the instant that he finds the orbless sockets. Brandon's jaw muscles and joints grow slack, allowing his mouth to gape, offering a welcoming and dark portal. His arms begin to move the little red Joe closer to his waiting orifice. The now animated air freshener, raising its nubs toward Brandon's mouth as a baby looking to be picked up by a parent. Brandon's eyelids fall quickly as his head reclines. Slowly, Brandon moves the little red Joe closer and closer to his open mouth, the inches becoming centimeters to millimeters. A large pickup truck roars past the parked sedan, raining down empty beer cans upon Brandon's windshield. The laughter from the bed of the pickup truck, along with the pelting of the empty beer can, shakes Brandon from his hypnotic state. His heart jumps into his throat, in unison as he tosses the little red Joe on top of the gray plastic bag. Goddamn rednecks, Brandon laughs as he regains his senses. His mind seems to have almost blocked out the intense moment of wanting to ingest a newly purchased and unpackaged air freshener. He rubs his eyes to chase away a tingling feeling in his brain that Brandon mistakes for some much-needed rest, but is really the ancient fight-or-flight instincts, warning him of the danger resting in his passenger seat. Brandon rolls on from the intersection, driving the last quarter mile to the land owned by his family. Brandon turns his vehicle in the driveway, traveling a good half mile, and parks next to his family's personal fleet. He stops the car and kills the engine. His fingers run through his hair as Brandon lets out a sigh of relief to the thought of finally being able to take off his shoes from a long day of working retail. Brandon reaches over and grabs the plastic and feels a prick in his hand. Brandon yelps suddenly and pulls his hand back, finding a slow trickle of blood. Shock grips his eyes as the drugs take hold. His eyes drip to the passenger seat. "What the f—" Brandon mutters with his eyes trying to find their focus. The red little Joe drops a needle. The sound of thick plastic tearing is muted by the bag containing the packaging as the drugs in his bloodstream start to take hold on his mind. The pink and black little Joe air fresheners crawl out of their gray plastic, pushing and shoving to exit the disposable sack first. With a solid kick of its nubby leg, the black little Joe is the winner and stands before the red air freshener, clearly the leader of the pack, triumphant. The strawberry-scented animated air freshener rubs its head as the red little Joe shakes its head at it with the utmost human disappointment. The pair looks at their red leader, the latter pointing to a drugged-out Brandon. His head begins to roll like a bobble-headed statue one finds as a giveaway at sporting events. The two new arrivals work in unison as the pink one helps the black one crawl over the middle console area. Short claws emerge from their nubs to aid in their travel towards their target. Brandon's mind begins to shut down as the drugs in his blood take a firm hold on it. The pink and black little Joes stand on the edge of the console, ready to leap at their target. A sudden jolt from the clawed nub of the strawberry-scented air freshener sends its black-colored counterpart tumbling off the edge onto the thigh of Brandon. Based on its actions, Brandon expected a sweet and twisted giggle to sound out as the pink air freshener raised the nub to where its mouth should be. Only silence occurred in the sedan. A quick whip of red tendrils knocks the pink little Joe onto its black-colored counterpart before retracting back into the right nub of the cherry-scented leader. A brief shoving match breaks out as the two subordinate constructs fight and roll around on Brandon's leg. Now deep in his drug fugue, Brandon's brain has given up on trying to rationalize these activities as his head bounces off the headrest attempting to support its load. The pink air freshener emerges victorious from the glorious battle of Brandon's thigh and takes lead in climbing the fleshy mountain. The pink little Joe takes the lead on the expedition as the once inanimate objects crawl up Brandon like he is the human equivalent of Mount Everest, leaving the drugged and dazed human struggling to find fear while in his haze of chemical cloudiness. The black little Joe makes its perch upon Brandon's right shoulder, while its pink counterpart creeps behind his head, using the collar of his shirt as his guardrail. The pink little Joe air freshener completes its journey. Brandon tries to control his noodle of a neck, flailing his head around as an unintentional makeshift weapon, attempting to catch a glimpse of the two air fresheners. Brandon's eyes roll around in their sockets as he struggles to catch a glimpse of the little red Joe climbs up the steering wheel, walks to the center of the wheel, and balances in the middle. The obvious leader of these animated air fresheners points forward towards Brandon's head with both of its nubs. The pink and black little Joe obey. They drive their clawed nubs into the nerves along Brandon's jawline. Tendrils of scented plastic drill into his flesh, force his head to straighten while holding center, and opens his jaw completely. The memory of the previous encounter with the cherry-scented air freshener suddenly reawakens, driving terror into the slowly diminishing consciousness that once was Brandon's mind. Brandon's vision begins to darken completely as the little red Joe air freshener launches itself into the air, his waiting tongue, its cushioned goal. It finds its target, the tendrils slashing at the back of his throat to engage his swallowing functions. His throat bulges and writhes as the air freshener crawls into Brandon's gullet. The lack of oxygen from the constricted airway finally takes hold, the red little Joe air freshener diving deeper inside its victim. Brandon passes out with a sickening thud of his head landing on the driver's side window, nearly knocking the black little Joe off its perch. It is still dark out when Brandon regains consciousness. There is no sign of any drugs having entered his system, and he stretches as if waking from a long day's sleep. His hands find the rearview mirror, turning it so Brandon can gaze upon himself. His eyes are bright cherry red, no longer holding any previous shades of white or brown that previously occupied them. Brandon smiles with satisfaction at the change, revealing a matching shade of crimson that has overcome his once white teeth. Brandon turns his head to examine his right shoulder. He finds the black and pink little Joe air fresheners perched upon it, a smile twisted up in their respective plastic surfaces. Brandon exits the vehicle as his new companions cling on with their tiny claws. The thud of his door closing is followed by the crunch of the gravel of the driveway under his work shoes signal his arrival to the rest of the family. The distinct noises cause the lights inside the house to turn on in anticipation of his return home. Brandon reaches the front door, and he reaches for the door handle. The flesh of his arm and hand begin to turn cherry red, matching his eyes. He pushes the door open and takes a step inside. "Mom? Natalia? Come see these cool new air fresheners I bought today," Brendan calls out as he closes the door softly and locks it with a click.